All right, we started recording. We're here with Healing Hearts. Janet and I are visiting today with Vilate.
Hi.
Not even in this country. She's across the world, far away. And today we're going to talk about breastfeeding, bottle feeding, pump feeding, all the different ways, formula feeding, all the different ways you can feed that sweet baby. So we just want to remind everybody that Healing Mama Hearts, we're just here to help all the moms we can, and our goal is to have an actual sanctuary for women to come and heal. And so just keep that in mind as you share our videos, watch our videos, and spread the word. Any mom or grandma that is going to be a soon to be grandma, or and if you know anyone who's suffering, just share our videos and share our group and help us grow our group, because that's how we get toward our goal. So we're so excited to have Kate here with us today. How are you?
I knew Vilate had experienced so many of these things. I think you've experienced every aspect of nourishing an infant.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. So I've had trouble I have 6 kids, by the way, and I've had trouble providing enough milk for all of them except one. My baby that's nursing now, this is the first time in my life I've ever had enough milk to just nurse exclusively. So I've done nursing and bottle feeding. I've done just bottle feeding, and I've done just nursing. So yeah,
you experienced it all. How's that?
Probably experienced all the emotions that come with every aspect that she just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So let's first talk about the what it is, the type of nourishment or feeding that you do, and then what emotions can come with each one. Should we do that? Okay.
So what did you do with your first one, Vilate?
So with my first one, I planned on breastfeeding exclusively, and he was just a massive eater, and I tried and tried and tried, and I just could not produce enough milk, and he would scream and cry, and so I would give him a bottle, and then I would feel super guilty because then it was like, well, somehow I'm not good enough, or I'm not. I think any woman who has tried to breastfeed and can't knows what I'm talking about, and you just have this feeling that just drags you down of that somehow you're not enough for your baby. And it really took letting go of that and just saying, you know what, I can give my baby what they need without having to breastfeed. I can breastfeed him as much as I can, and then I can let it go and give him something from a bottle and just be so grateful that I have the option of giving him a bottle.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because of your culture, our culture, the normal was breastfeeding, right?
Right.
And so that's why you feel so inadequate, is because you see all these moms just lop it out and feed the baby whenever the baby's hungry and the baby's full, burps, and they're done. And then when you are not producing enough milk, it makes you feel so guilty.
Right. Well, and then it creates this other feeling of, if I give them a bottle, it's going to reduce my milk supply further.
Yeah.
And so you push yourself so hard. And sometimes the stress of pushing yourself, of trying to feed a crying baby, actually reduces your milk.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's okay to just let go of it and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I can today. Tomorrow's a new day, and we'll do what we can tomorrow too.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That expectation, when we have expectations of ourselves or others and we don't meet that expectation, or even if they don't meet the expectation for us, that can cause a lot of stress and guilt. yeah,
One
like
of,
you're
one of
saying,
the things that I did that helped me feel a lot better about giving my baby a bottle is I actually made my own formula so that I knew what was in it. I knew what they were getting. And I knew that in some ways it was better than breast milk because your breast milk can only give them the nutrients that you have in your body. And if you aren't eating good foods that replace those nutrients, supplementing with good supplements that replace those nutrients, those nutrients aren't in your milk. And so by making my own formula, making sure I knew that they were getting the best of what was available, when I did give them the bottle, I could feel good about it. And I could say, you know what, this is giving my body a break, giving it a chance to recoup and gear up for next time. This is all right.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I would
That's
love if you posted that recipe when we're done talking about this.
yeah.
The problem with posting the recipe is it can't be a hard, fast recipe.
Oh, okay.
It needs to change based on the baby's age, based on the
Yeah.
baby's digestive abilities, all of
Yeah.
that. But what I
Okay.
did, and I can give you kind of an idea of how to go about it. I got a bottle of infant formula, and I looked to see, or you can even Google it online, and the information's there if you look at the nutrition facts. So I looked at how many grams of protein per ounce. And then I found a protein powder. And then I used the protein powder to get the same amount or more of protein per ounce in my homemade formula. And so for me, I found a good protein powder that is, I found that pea protein gave them stomach aches. So I used a whey protein that didn't contain any oils, because oils can be have a negative effect. That was soy free, gluten free. Just found a really good healthy protein powder. I used that for the protein, and then found a really good multivitamin. That's a powder that I could mix in to put all of the vitamins that they need. I did a little extra selenium because selenium is so critical for babies' brain development and for their immune system. So I always do a little added selenium in addition to the multivitamin. And then I do calcium and a calcium supplement. And then fat and sugar is a little bit tricky. I personally left sugar out and didn't add any other than what was already included in the protein powder because I didn't feel like I needed my babies to have it super sweet. And as long as they enjoyed it, I felt like that was okay. And then fat is tricky to get a high quality fat that will stay melted in a bottle at room temperature. So I did like some fish oil capsules that I would like poke a hole in and just squeeze it into their bottle just before I fed them their bottle to get a little healthy fat in. It wouldn't work super well if you're exclusively giving them that because it's hard. They need more sugar than that and they need more fat than that. You can add molasses to get more sugar. But then it tends to stain their clothes if they spit up at all. So I just left it out. But because I was breastfeeding and then supplementing with the formula, they were getting enough fat and they were getting enough sugar that if they occasionally had a bottle that wasn't full of those things, they were just fine.
You should see her kids.
So
they're so healthy looking.
they are. They're great.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But yeah, so that worked great for supplementing. And I supplemented. So Preston was my oldest. And I just breastfed and supplemented him until he was 4 months old. And at that point, I got pregnant again and couldn't breastfeed at all. And so he had to go strictly with the formula at that point. So, and then I did the same thing with my twins. I never had enough to nurse my twins. So they had to have formula, breast milk whenever I could, formula when I couldn't. And it was a bit more of a struggle with them because they were getting a lot more formula because there was 2 of them. So I would often buy breast milk from other moms and then mix it half and half and do like half breast milk, half formula, so that they were getting enough fat and sugar to give them what they needed. But it's worked out so great for me. All my kids are super fat and healthy and just never get sick. And yeah, I would use it. I would use it over and over again.
Janet told once how there was a mom who just was so distraught at the thought of giving formula, and she finally, Janet, you'd said you took her to the store and you guys found one that she was comfortable with.
Yeah, the person that I was thinking of, she was just really distraught because her baby would cry while she was nursing the baby. He would just whimper and cry and pull away. It was her first baby, and she just could not figure it out. And he just was fussy all night, all day. And one day I was sitting there watching her, and I said, she thought that he had gas, or maybe her milk was not, didn't have what it needed for digestion and stuff. And I said, have you ever tried to give him a bottle of formula? And she said, no, I've always just been scared to use formula, and it's almost kind of like the cheater way of doing it. It's the easy way out, and only lazy moms give formula. She had all these preconceived ideas of giving the baby formula. And I said, well, I don't think that it's like that. I don't think it's a lazy way. I think it's just whatever works for that baby, and all babies are different. So the baby's happy. Why don't you try it? Why don't we go to the store and get the healthiest formula you can get? And, you can read all the ingredients, and there's some formulas that have junk ingredients, but you would just pay more money and get a good ingredient. And she gave him a bottle, and he ate and ate and ate, and then he slept. The longest he had ever slept. He was like a month old, and he had never slept that long in his life. And so what she realized is that she needed to supplement. He wasn't getting enough milk. And she had taken him to the pediatrician and everything, and they couldn't figure out why that baby was so fussy. And she was nursing as often as they told her to. And so, but the baby was not, because she was so determined that it had to look a certain way. She had to nurse that baby to be a good mom, and so she would not think of a bottle. And once she gave him that bottle, she said, oh, he is starving. And she worked through the guilt. I told her, she just started boobing, and she said, all this time I've starved my baby because I was so determined to nurse him. And I said, you know what? He was still having wet diapers. He was still having pooey diapers. You were not starving him. He was frustrated, yes, but you were not starving him. He's growing just fine. He gained some weight. You were not starving the baby, and you know better now what he needs. So it's really a psychological thing. And that does make, if you're stressed about the amount of milk, it does make you not produce as much. Like Vilate was saying, it's a psychological thing. But she's got, I don't know how many children she has, but she just is willing to try whatever she needs to try to have a happy baby.
Yeah, the other thing with that is if the baby's hungry, they're not going to sleep. If they're not going to sleep, you're not going to sleep. And if you aren't sleeping, you cannot produce milk.
Yep, that is so true.
So sometimes all it takes is giving them 2 ounces to give them just enough to get them to sleep. And that gives you a chance to recoup and get what you need, so that next time you can provide most or all of what they need.
Yeah.
That is such a good point, Vilate. That is so true.
And I like how you reached out to other moms and bought milk too from other breastfeeding. I saw who was adopting a baby. She was like, I want to give him the best opportunity. Is there any moms out there that can, don't know? And there was such an outpour. I think that a lot of moms, like, they're in it alone. And if they out and you milk that you want to donate or anything, there are moms out there who do produce more than they need or that can pump extra. And it makes a mom that is able to give feel so blessed. Like, when I can give extra to someone who's in need, another baby, it's a good feeling. And I love that feeling of helping someone. So if you have a baby that you help with, don't be afraid to ask. There's moms that are ready and want to help.
That is such a good point, Elise. I love that. We stick together and we help each other out. That is such a good point. Because some moms produce ample amounts of breast milk.
This woman that I got the breast milk from my twins, she produced so much milk. She said that she had twins as well. I found her on a Facebook site that I was on for moms of twins. And she would nurse her twins her twins were about 6 months old. So she would nurse both babies, and then she would go pump what was left, and she would get an 8-ounce bottle off of each side.
Oh my
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yes. After every feeding. So she said, like, 3 or 4 times a day, she was pumping out 2 8-ounce bottles.
Wow.
Of extra milk after she was done feeding her twins. And so I was able to go and just buy 350 ounces all at once and just come home and feed my babies. It was amazing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So cool. Some moms can, they've got the right hormones and the right relaxation and whatever to produce that. That is so cool.
It was really neat to me that after I had William, my youngest, when I did produce enough milk for him, there for a little while, I actually was producing too much milk, and I was able to kind of return the favor and donate milk to another mom that needed it. And it felt so good to turn around and give back,
Yeah. So there's this aspect that is very frustrating to moms, that the baby can't latch on, or they have enough milk but the baby won't nurse because they can't latch on. Have you ever experienced that, Vilate?
Oh my goodness. So I had with my second, I nursed her in the hospital. Everything seemed fine. And then I came home from the hospital and I could not get her to latch on. She just would not latch, and I tried and tried and I tried everything I could think of, and I could not get her to latch. And so after 24 hours, when she still had not latched, I went to a lactation consultant, and I basically just said, I'm not leaving here until my baby eats because I don't know what to do. And she sat there with me for about 2 hours. And by the time we were finished, we found out that I needed a nipple guard in order for her to be able to latch on. Some women have what they call flat nipples. And some women have what they call inverted nipples.
Yeah.
And when you have flat or inverted nipples, there's just not enough for the baby to grab onto, especially if the baby is on the smaller side. Now, with my son, he didn't have a problem because he was huge and he was hungry and he just made it work. But with her, she was a lot smaller. She didn't have as big of a mouth and she just couldn't get it and couldn't make it work. And so by using a nipple guard, it gave her the ability to latch on and eat. And then slowly with time, I would practice doing it without. And as she got a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger suck and stuff, she was able to do it without, and we were just fine.
Cool.
Wow. Okay.
So there's tools out there.
Okay. You went to a nursing, what was it, a doula?
It was actually an IBCLC. they have lactation consultants, and a lactation consultant can give you basic information about nursing. An IBCLC can diagnose problems. And I've had to go to them a couple of times, and IBCLC will go a lot more in depth with you on exactly what you need to do and what might be wrong and what your options are for fixing it. And so like with my third daughter, or my third child, she had a very severe lip and tongue tie. And the lip tie is where the frenulum right here that attaches your top lip to your gum, it's too thick and comes down too far. And it makes it so that lip can't turn up when they nurse. Then the lip is in the way and they can't get a good latch on the breast. And so they're nursing right on the very tip, which causes bleeding and cracking, and it's so painful.
Right.
And it's the same thing if they can't get it with their tongue. So it took me 8 months before I finally got it all figured out with her, because a lot of the, I went to a lactation consultant. I didn't realize the difference between a consultant and an IBCLC. The consultant was like, everything looks fine. You've got a good like position, a good hold. You're doing everything right. I don't know why it hurts. Just keep trying. And at this point, I'd almost lost my nipple because it was so like torn to shreds. You know, she said you could take her to a pediatric dentist to see if there's any kind of a problem with a tongue tie or a lip tie. So I did, and the dentist was like, everything's fine. But lip ties and tongue ties are kind of a new thing that they're learning about, and not all of them know how to properly diagnose them. Sometimes it can be really hard to see. And so when I kept having problems, I reached out to some other people and was given a referral to a pediatric dentist that knew what he was looking for. And they said, if there's a tongue tie or a lip tie, he will recognize it. So I went, and right away he was like, oh yeah, I can see exactly what's wrong. They fixed it. And within about 2 weeks, she was nursing great and had no more pain.
Did they just clip it?
They do it with a laser. There's less bleeding and it heals faster. So they just laser it. It was really like, they put a little local anesthesia on it with a Q-tip, lasered it. She didn't even cry. It was not a big deal at all. And then my twins had the same thing. I just went and got them checked as soon as they were born, because I was like, I'm not dealing with this again. Yeah. So as soon as they were born, I took them, got it checked, and one of them had it more severely than the other, but they both had it, and so we got them taken care of right away, and they were fine.
Wow.
But they're really, and I think this is one of the big important things that I learned from those experiences, is that breastfeeding is hard, but it shouldn't hurt. If it's hurting, there's a problem. And you don't have to just suffer through the pain of breastfeeding. Like, when it actually is working well, there's no pain. And if you've had that experience, it's so different from all of my other experiences.
Right.
That's a really good point. If it's hurting, that is not normal.
Right. It shouldn't hurt, and it shouldn't leave marks. If you're getting bruises and cracks and bleeding, and there's this idea, like I remember hearing from so many women, when you start breastfeeding, especially for the first time, it hurts, and you're going to get cracked and sore nipples, and you just kind of have to learn how to deal with it. But that's not true. If you get it right from the beginning, there's no reason for it to ever hurt, or for you to ever go through a period of, they would talk about like you have to just toughen up your nipples, and it's not true. If it's right and there's not a problem, it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't have to toughen up.
Right.
That's a good point. What about thrush? Wouldn't that make the nipples get cracked and bleeding if the baby has thrush?
I've never had one of my babies have thrush.
So I have. So that's kind of my expertise then.
Yeah.
We've had thrush before. It didn't hurt me. It can get in your in your chest and enter into your nipples and stuff. I caught early on. I keep an eye on my kiddos, especially if you have to have if you've been given antibiotics for Group B strep, because some women have that. I've started to learn that I don't really need the antibiotics, and I've started to get away from that. So if I have any more kids, I really don't think I'll get the antibiotics anymore right before delivery. But it seems like when I do that, that's when they get thrush more. I think it wipes out all the good bacteria and lets all the bad bacteria grow. And so you just see whiteness in the back of their tongue, and it'll start to grow toward the front, and it'll get really white and fuzzy kind of looking. And so I had to give medicine to both my baby and myself, which I had to fight for that. Like my doctor wouldn't give me the medicine for the thrush, but it goes back and forth. Like if they have it, you have it. It goes back and forth, right? So it can make it a little bit painful. So that's, what Vilate was saying. If it's painful to nurse, then something's not right. There's thrush, there's mastitis, there's so many things that need to be checked out. And
pain. You don't need to expect it to be painful.
Right. You shouldn't expect pain, but if you do experience pain, then you need to kind of have it diagnosed, because there's always usually a reason. There's tongue ties, there's thrush, there's mastitis. Mastitis is only going to be on one side. If you do have mastitis and only one, if you're nursing on both sides and only one side hurts, it might be mastitis. Or thrush can be on both sides because you're affected by both sides. But I didn't have any pain with my thrush, but as soon as I saw it in my baby's mouth, we went and started getting it treated. And actually the antibiotics to treat it didn't even do that great. It was only when I started treating with probiotics. You can get baby probiotics. And so I started treating with that, and that's when it finally, we fit right as about the middle of treating with antibiotics. I started adding probiotics and kept doing probiotics even after the treatment was done. So
you guys do probiotics on and off all in your food, don't you? Like you do all kinds of food probiotics, right? I've noticed you sneak that in the foods for the kids. I think that's really wise, so that your probiotics are good and strong.
Yep. Yeah, we do a lot. The kids I'll make my kombucha drink. I'll have a flavored water and add like a cup of kombucha in there. And the kids just drink my water all the time. So I'm like, all right, go ahead.
That's awesome.
Probiotics. So, and I make ranch with kefir and all that stuff. So, but yeah. Wow. That's a good point. It shouldn't hurt. Like it can hurt when there's something wrong. Don't give up if there's something wrong. Get help. Don't just, don't suffer through it, and you don't have to quit if you can get help for it, with thrush or with mastitis or with tongue ties or anything like that, latching problems. Yeah.
Can we talk for a minute about mastitis?
Yeah.
So with mastitis, I never experienced it until my twins, actually. And then I got it like every couple of weeks. It was so miserable.
Yeah.
And finally, somebody told me about sunflower lecithin. You can take a couple of capsules of sunflower lecithin. And if you're familiar with lecithin, lecithin is like a thinning agent. So like you can mix lecithin with butter, like real butter, not margarine, real butter. It gets hard when it's in the fridge, right? If you mix a little lecithin with it, it won't get hard. It'll soften it up. So by taking lecithin, what it does is it thins out the cream in your milk and allows it to clean everything out of all the ducts.
Nice.
If you have any kind of clogged ducts, which is what causes mastitis, it just cleans everything out. So I found that the minute I started feeling those clogged ducts, you'll know because you feel little hard lumps and they might start getting red, or it feels tender like you've got a little bruise or something.
Yeah.
I would take a couple of sunflower lecithin. Within 24 hours, they were gone and it never developed into mastitis. So it's such an easy solution, and you can find sunflower lecithin almost anywhere, the little capsules, and it is just so helpful. And it can also actually help to boost your supply as well, because if your ducts are clogged, it's essentially telling your body, oh, there's enough milk, you don't need to produce more because it's not emptying out. So you take the sunflower lecithin, it cleans everything out and allows your body to do better at making milk.
That's so
Tells
cool.
your body you need to make more. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There
That's
was a topic.
remedy.
There was something I was going to mention, but I can't remember. Oh, so the emotions of the frustrations and of feeding your baby. See, that's a prime. That's a prime. Like, you have to figure out how to feed the baby to make the baby happy and healthy. And if you're not able to do that, then that can make postpartum depression so much worse. Like, if you have a tendency anyway for postpartum depression, and then you've got the breastfeeding or the bottle feeding, where that can add so much to the stress and to the depression that's already there.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
I found that it
it's pretty
also,
important to get help.
yeah, for sure. I found that it also has a tendency to cause problems between me and my spouse as well, because a lot of times your spouse can see that you're pushing yourself too hard. And so they'll just be like, oh, just give them a bottle. And you're like, you have no idea how hard I've been working all day to produce enough milk. And now you want to just throw all that away and give them a bottle. But one of the things that I also found that helped to make me feel better about giving them a bottle is that when you are exclusively breastfeeding, you are the only person that gets that bonding experience of feeding the baby. When you bottle feed, your husband can share in that. And as a father, he can sit and feed the baby. There's a certain bonding that happens when they do that, that's really special. And so if you don't produce enough milk, that's one of the upsides. Or if you don't breastfeed at all and you're just bottle feeding, that's one of the upsides, is that your partner can participate in that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's a good point.
That they can, because they kind of can feel left out of that bonding experience.
And they don't understand. They're so quick to just say, do something, just throw whatever in their mouth. They don't understand that bonding that happens. Probably that scientifically it's proven that there is a major connection of bonding going on while you're feeding it, whether it's with the bottle or breastfeeding. So that's a pretty important aspect of it. Do you guys ever prop the bottle up and walk away with the new baby?
I won't do it. I love that time with my babies too much. Even with my twins, I couldn't handle holding one and letting the other one lay next to me to nurse. So I would sit like crisscross legs and lay both babies on opposite directions on my legs and then hold their bottles so that I could hold both of them while they drink their bottles.
It just amazes me what mothers do to take care of their babies. It is amazing how hard moms work to have healthy babies, emotionally and physically.
It really is.
the average mom would do anything for their child,
Yeah.
to help them to be
I'll never
healthy and
forget.
happy.
I'll never forget sitting in our living room drinking this horrible what is that oil that you take to get labor? Castor oil concoction that my midwife gave me, trying to get labor started. And then I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm drinking this horrible, like disgusting stuff, like forcing myself to drink this so that contractions will start. Contractions that I know are going to make me feel like I'm dying by the end. But I'm like trying to get them to start so that I can have a new baby that's going to keep me up at night and keep me like, so that they can turn into 2-year-olds that are dumping my flour out on the carpet. And I was like, wait, why are we doing this again? Like, this all leads to difficult things.
Yeah. So true. Like I'll get to the end of my days and I'm like, just stay in there. It's just easier. I've had that thought before. Yeah. But and I think that's what makes
a good point.
People that don't have kids, that's all they see as well. They only see all the hardships and everything. So I think that's, that bonding with the baby is so important because that is the good parts.
It is.
Only reason it's worth it.
Watching them roll away from you with milk dribbling down their chin and they've got that milk drunk look on their face, it's just the best feeling in the whole world.
Yeah. It's good. Well, thanks so much for visiting with us today, Vilate. It was good to
it's been awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, and we will we'll do another video about breastfeeding, bottle feeding, formula feeding, all the different kinds. Fed is best. And we want moms to feel like that having those expectations and then having them not get met can just cause all that guilt and shame, and that's what we want to kind of help everybody work through, because that's what can cause the depression and all that. That's really the root of depression and anxiety and all that stuff. So we hope this video helps all the moms out there, and we'll talk to everybody later. Yes.
Thank you for recording and doing all that part so that I can just safely drive.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
It's kept me, thank you for doing all of it. And it's good to chat with you, Vilate.
You too.
All right.
All right. Well, safe driving.